All right. We are hanging out today with Smeet, co-founder of Theya. That's Theya.us. Okay. And we are talking about something interesting to some, less interesting to others. I guess it depends on how much Bitcoin you have or how much you're into this, but we're talking about multisig made simple. And it's a really cool discussion with Smeet today because what's unique about Theya is that they were in the YC Winter 23 batch, which, if you know anything about Y Combinator and their track record, and Paul Graham and then Sam Altman and their history with working with companies, it's rather exciting. I'm a huge fan of Paul Graham myself and everything that YC has done. So it's really cool to hear how they worked with a Bitcoin company and how they view crypto and how they view other things. So we're definitely going to talk about that too. So, Smeet, how are you today and where are you today?
Hey, thanks for hosting me, Mike. I'm calling in from San Francisco. This is our home base. We've been building out company and in the San Francisco Bay Area over the last several months. So good to join you.
All right, cool. So listen, let's talk a little bit about your history. Now, before you were a co-founder working on Theya, what were you working on previously? And what is your Bitcoin vintage year? How did you get wrapped up in all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the large majority of my professional career, I've had the honor to work in the technology space. Once as a founder, before as a venture capital investor with one of the largest venture capital firms out of Asia. And then finally, also as a founding member at an enterprise software company. So my experience with technology startups have been like fairly deep and wide over the last 8 to 10 years. Having said that, funnily enough, my career started on Wall Street with a legacy institution called Deutsche Bank. I was part of the foreign exchange and interest rate derivatives team. I used to trade various kinds of like risk assets and risk derivative products on top of FX and interest rates. And that was my first foray into global macro as an asset class. So to be like completely honest, my first interest in Bitcoin has always primarily been through the monetary lens, even in spite of the fact that my personal background has been engineering technology. I've always viewed Bitcoin as a form of monetary revolution, and spending time building out my career from Wall Street at Deutsche Bank really helped me understand the broad landscape of global macro and how different forms of like currencies and interest rate products work with each other. But as I said, I only spent like about 2 3 years doing a full-time job at Wall Street. Very quickly migrated into the technology space. My first company was in the virtual reality industry long before the industry was called a metaverse or anything of that sort. Built out a VR company. We scaled it from 0 to 1, raised some early stage seed capital, but never really saw way to grow beyond that 0 to 1 phase. And so after that, spent a couple of years doing venture capital investing from a firm called IDE Ventures. I looked at enterprise software and consumer fintech as two broad domains. And after that, I happened to work at another Y Combinator company, early stage Y Combinator company, who were building an enterprise software company out in the AI sort of banking, lending operations, AI space. I joined them as an early stage go to market person. And yeah, again, just to summarize, I have spent time as doing a variety of different roles within the startup ecosystem. AI is my second startup, and this time it's sort of a full-time Bitcoin role. Bitcoin personally, I see of Bitcoin as in three different ways. I think the first time I heard of Bitcoin was on a trading tour at Deutsche Bank back in 2014. Relatively quick to dismiss it. I found it like interesting enough, but not interesting enough to spend any more time or certainly not any more money into it. I wish I had. My real sort of epistemological base for Bitcoin started being built up around the 2018-2019 cycle. As a student of history, as a student of economics, as a student of geopolitics, I started getting into a lot of different domains that kind of converge into Bitcoin. right before the pandemic. And I think pandemic was finally the really sort of the final nail in the coffin. From my perspective, Bitcoin really crossed the event horizon from, as a black hole of sorts around just after the pandemic, as Western governments and governments all across the world unleashed a major sort of liquidity wave through fiscal and monetary policies. I think that was a final sort of moment for me where I'm like, okay, Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin is the most important thing around. And yeah, since 2020, have not really looked back. Finally, it hit a point where I was like, okay, I need to like leave my fiat mining job and like really get into a full-time Bitcoin role. I was fortunate enough to like group up with some of my very close friends who have also been entrepreneurs in the past, and I've worked with major Silicon Valley companies like Google and Robinhood. And we all got together. We put together a business idea around Theya, which was the whole point of simplifying self-custody, simplifying multisig, building a multisig platform that is really like sort of design centric from a no coiner or a pre-coiner point of view, right? Our primary thesis is that most Bitcoin products are built for other Bitcoiners, but there is a dearth of product and there is an open white space we built on Bitcoin for folks who are not yet on Bitcoin. And that is the whole sort of premise of making self-custody as simple as possible, as secure as possible, without really compromising on the broader security aspects of self-custody. So yeah, that's how we got into Theya. Thanks to some of our sort of more traditional technology background, we were able to get into the Y Combinator 2023 batch. And we had an amazing experience being a YC company, and I certainly recommend early stage companies to consider that as an avenue.
Okay. So let's talk about what your title is here in your materials is the self-custodial Bitcoin banking for affluent households. Okay. It specifically notes affluent households. How did you decide to do that? And what is the focus there?
Yeah. So I should caveat by saying that while we're currently designing a product that is meant for folks who are able to afford and custody about one BTC. One BTC at today's price points of give or take $30,000 typically is generally being afforded by more affluent households in the global north. We see whole coiners as a very underserved category and as an underserved market in the sense that large majority of like high end Bitcoin custody solutions, multisig solutions are meant for folks who are holding, who have either been OGs or who have been like holding large sums of Bitcoin. But we see that many of the folks in that point 0.1 to 1 BTC range are either currently affluent or are going to become very affluent in near future as Bitcoin price sort of rallies. And to that extent, we want to like essentially, as I said, simplify the whole experience of doing multi-sig self-custody for folks, investors, affluent investors, starting with developed markets like the US and North America. But over time, we truly believe in Bitcoin being a borderless technology and want to like eventually scale this modular multi-sig platform for the global audiences. As again, as a YC company, I think Paul Graham has spoken about this at length as well as with other YC partners. Having a focus group, having a focus around who you want to serve first is very critical to like bootstrapping a startup early before you hit PMF. And we feel that zero point 0.1 to 1 BTC or that broad range of folks are very underserved by the traditional sort of Bitcoin multi-sig companies. And that's where we want to focus most of our energy through this bear market.
Okay. So, real quick, now you touched on positive feedback on being in YC, and you were the only Bitcoin company in there. How do they view crypto? How do they view Bitcoin? Did they let you know their underlying thoughts? Was anyone trying to push you into a token or something else, or do they get it?
So I would say, short answer is neither, in the sense that they definitely did not push us to do anything crypto, anything token, or of that sorts. Having said that, I wouldn't say that they're not your standard sort of Bitcoin maximalist investors, right? So they're obviously their approach to investing is far more broad based. They're also open about funding crypto companies, and to that extent, we are one of the only like top three or top five sort of Bitcoin companies in YC's history. YC doesn't have a history of like funding like Bitcoin only companies, and so we were in that sense like very fortunate to be a part of this broader community as a Bitcoin company. So to that extent, I said I wouldn't put YC as an investor who fully embraces Bitcoin just yet, but certainly they're certainly one of the most founder friendly sort of VCs or an investing community out there. And not once did we ever get a push from them to think of tokens or like crypto or anything of that sort. They always believed in the vision, they always believed in the team, and they were super supportive all through our sort of YC batch experience.
So are you still in communication with C and as far as regulation and other things go? Are they helping you work through problems? Like how does that relationship post cohort? How is that?
So it totally depends on the team, on the entrepreneur. We typically like to stay in touch. So we share any kind of likes of email updates, textual updates to our partners, so interact with them on Twitter. And then at the same time, I'll be to basically book like 20 minutes with our YC partner whenever we feel the need. So we cautiously use that opportunity. Obviously, we don't just call them up, share a regular update. But yeah, the community is obviously very strong. Any kind of getting any connections, getting any referrals within the broader Silicon Valley space, YC is our go-to stop. That's where we end up being for any kind of anything that we're stuck with. I think YC is certainly very supportive, very helpful. And we have been told that no matter like what product you're working on, what company you're working on, you're now part of this community and you can like you know, spend time with YC partners through your life, essentially. Yeah, very, very grateful in that sense.
All right, let's get right into it finally. Where are you at with Theya? Where are you at now? Are you in a test flight? Are you handing out test flight invites? How are you navigating the financial system here in the US with choke point and MTLs? And how are you feeling that like many other companies? Where are you from 0 to 1 now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Happy to announce that we just had our latest of stable release on Apple Test Flight. So we are still in the private beta mode. Currently, we are rolling out the Test Flight app to early adopters on the wait list, folks who have been excited about our project, about our app. We are getting like great feedback from them. We are constantly improving the user experience, working on the security. We're also going through a complete new redesign. So by the time we will be like publicly live on Apple App Store, which is between 6 to 8 weeks from now, we will have a completely rehauled our design and everything that we have been building across over the last 8, 9 months, over the last 1 year, will be fully realized and manifested into this app. While we have been like making incremental progress, it's all been under private beta and wanted to have a fully controlled experience. We wanted to make sure that we are super cautious. It's ultimately we are managing people's long-term savings and security of their like assets. So that we don't want to be reckless. And yeah, so if any of the listeners want to try out a extremely simplified version of multi-sig self-custody of their Bitcoin stack, they can go to our website, sign up for the wait list, and then over the next few days, we'll just reach out to them within in a set of instructions. So install the app on their phone. And then, as I said, in a month or two, we will be publicly live on Apple App Store as well. So if you just want to wait around till then.
In your deck, you have something very cool. It's a very bold claim, but I really like it. And it is that you're building the UBS of Bitcoin and long-term goals, no secret, lending, investments. So when the app goes live, what's going to be live day one? Is that just an intro multi-sig product? And being the UBS of Bitcoin long term is pretty exciting. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. S- We are, we have like obviously very ambitious, like long-term goals, long-term plans. UBS being the largest sort of private wealth bank in the world, we certainly take inspiration from that sense, from a pure legacy standpoint. Having said that, as I said, we want to do everything very right. So we want to incorporate Bitcoin ethos on every product step that we take. At the same time, also not really compromise on the user experience. That's where we see as the biggest opportunity. Most of the Bitcoin products built in the previous decade have been built by Bitcoiners or other Bitcoiners. Now, I think we are at the real sort of tipping point where Bitcoiners can build products for like non-Bitcoin folks or for folks who are like pre-coiners right now. So the long-term vision is to build a coin-centric private bank that incorporates all sorts of financial services needs, right from savings, which let's say you can arguably like multisig self-custody is your savings account. Think of Lightning wallet on top of that, a single sig Lightning wallet as a your checking account. We'll have all sorts of uh, borrowing and lending that can happen across the most present collateral, which is your Bitcoin. And over time, we will incorporate all sorts of investment products and different other protocol applications that are being built on L2. So I think we're long term very, very bullish on Bitcoin. At the same time, we're right now currently taking like a base layer L1 approach of really like solving the whole experience of self custodial wallets, multisig wallets. So yeah, at the moment when we launch, it will primarily be users will be able to like either do pure iPhone based multisig, or they can do iPhone plus hardware wallet based multisig. And when we plan to support a large set of like Bitcoin wallets, currently we have support for Ledger and Trezor, and then we are adding some for other high quality Bitcoin wallets onto the app. Just to summarize, multisig as day one product, and then over time, as you mentioned, we aim to be one of the largest sort of Bitcoin centric consumer banking application.
All right. So I have a couple of more questions for you here. And the first one is, will your wallet be open source?
Certainly something that we have considered very strongly. We have been getting feedback from some of the OG Bitcoin folks that you should consider making your open wallet source is wallet open source. To be completely honest, we haven't really made a final decision, but we are very leaning towards gradually making it open source. We realize that this is a security product, so it is a security aspect, and the multi-sig architecture of our platform can be made open source. Obviously, we will continue to have some parts of the application closed source with respect to the design and the user experience that we can control. But the security architecture of the app, we certainly leaning towards making it open source with time.
Okay. So I want to share one slide from your deck. And if you get upset with me, then I will take it out. But the question that everyone probably has asked you many times in terms of competition is with a logo that's actually not on this slide, which would be Unchained Capital, very near and dear to us Bitcoiners. So, how does this not compete with them? What is the differences there? And it's just really funny looking back now at 2023 at how many of the names on this slide are toast.
Absolutely.
Uh, a third right here is really done.
Yeah. So no, I think we have immense respect, and we have immense respect for what Unchained has done for the ecosystem. Joseph, through entrepreneurs that I have been personally following over the last several years. In fact, to be very honest, like we have been like under discussions with Unchained to like have some sort of business partnerships around like on-ramp coin for our customers, as well as for corporate treasury at Theya's end. We certainly don't really see Unchained as a competition. I think Unchained really set the stage for like phase one of multisig, which was typically meant for, uh, as I said, relatively larger holdings of Bitcoin. Unchained's model of relationship driven banking services around Bitcoin is something that a lot of like sort of Bitcoiners who have been minted over the last several years appreciate. Where, as I said, where we are focusing our attention energy is one BTC and below one BTC kind of a market, which we feel is currently underserved and also not in the best interest of platforms like Unchained, as well as, let's say, even Casa would go and serve after. We are very thankful to Unchained in the sense of just making the playground and opening up the playground and educating the first wave of adopters around multisig and getting them onto a multisig standard. Our job is to take it to more folks, make it the, the technology itself mass affluent and hopefully global at one point of time.
Okay. There's a few other things in wording here, like yield generation. So is that still something that you're looking at? And then in this sort of multi-sig environment, how would you generate some sort of yield for your customers?
As I said, think of the multisig wallet itself as your long-term savings account. So anything that is in your multisig account doesn't obviously generate any kind of like income cash flow. It is completely cold. It's completely under your control. We can't do anything with it. We can't rehypothecate. We can't mess around with that coin. Having said that, obviously there are great companies working on in the Lightning ecosystem where obviously there is opportunities for like real world cash flow, yield generation based on just being able to provide liquidity. So over time, as we build up the Bitcoin sort of AUM scale, if a, if a section of our customers do want to generate some form of cash flow on their Bitcoin holdings, we are very excited about opening up infrastructure and building infrastructure so that they can actually lend out their Bitcoin onto the Lightning Network and generate some real world yield. Obviously, I don't like using the word yield because the crypto industry is just misappropriated that word and phrasing to a very large degree, it's just unfortunate. At the same time, the real world yield aspect is very important, where in Lightning Network as penetrates into the real world, as more actual true economic transactions happen on Lightning, there will be opportunities for long-term Bitcoin owners and holders to like generate some form of cash if they choose to. So any kind of yield generation on our platform in the future will always be like completely 100% consensual, and they will customers will be completely aware of what's happening to the Bitcoin as opposed to us just trying to rug pull them. Yeah, we're doing it. We, as I said, we want to have a Bitcoin ethos at every stage of product development, and at the same time, not really compromise on security or user experience. It's much harder than most people sort of think. And I think we have the right amount of right sort of set of background with respect to technology and financial services in our core team to make this happen over the next 12 years.
Okay. After the YC experience, did you find it pretty easy to raise your round? Did that YC stamp of approval really help? Clearly the investment from Lightning Ventures, that was really that's really what pushed it over the edge. But how was it? Did you get some big name? You didn't do a press release for the round, did you?
We haven't done a press release for the round. We need to do that. You know, try to overlap that with our Apple App Store launch so that we can get the best leverage out of it. Certainly YC branding and being part of the YC community made our lives relatively easier. We were raising in the midst of the crypto bear market in Q1 2023. So it was certainly a difficult time. Having said that, support from Lightning Venture, support from like other folks in the community was really helpful to like get interest from investors. And at the same time, being part of the YC community and our own traditional background in Silicon Valley does really navigate that early stage fundraising hurdles, and we were able to like onboard some really cool top tier like branded VCs onto the cap table. We'll, as I said, we'll announce around in a couple of months to overlap that with our app store launch.
All right. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, cool. And then at your time in Silicon Valley there, did you ever do any personal angel investing yourself out of your own portfolio?
I've not I've done a couple of investments, but you would think of them as more traditional sort of investments in enterprise software. I've done one in sort of consumer healthcare space. Generally excited about like sort of aerospace industries. I've made a couple of investment in aerospace and defense industry. Unfortunately, I've not been able to make personal investments in kind yet. So kind leaning towards that as we see like a new generation of coin companies spring up both in traditional Silicon Valley circles as outside. So yeah, I think of myself as a more of a global macro investor. I look at different asset class and different geographies, everything under the sun. I do have some allocation to early stage angel investments, but that doesn't form the core of my portfolio.
All right. It's been cool talking with you, Smeet, and catching up. And for anyone who's interested, it's Theya.us. You can join the wait list there or maybe shoot Smeet a DM for a test flight link on Apple. And we'll definitely keep an eye out for that press release and getting in the app store. And thanks for hanging out and telling us about Theya.
Absolutely.
All right. Talk to you soon.